tomorrow, right? For tomorrow, right? Yeah. Okay, talk more after the break. There's a break, right? Too much information, Josh. Hey guys, can we get the door? Yeah. Cool. Jake, can you get the door in the back? Sure. Yeah, no worries. Okay, so we're moving to our next couple of sessions. So we're going to be starting doing our demos, right? So I think there's 2 slots. One is from now until about 10:02, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back, and then we'll do 4 o'clock to about 5 o'clock. Thank you so much for everyone who signed up for the sessions. And if you want to demo more, feel free to add. We have lots of time between now and dinner, so excited to see all the demos. All right, the first one is Peter. Did you want me to pull up the presentation?
Yes. Yeah, so I'm Peter. I work in London on Chrome for Android, specifically on trusted web activities. And this is just a brief demo of permission delegation and permission auto-enrollment for TWAs. Cool. So first things first, for those of you who don't know, what is a TWA? If you know what an Android custom tab is, it's basically, like technically it's a custom tab but full screen. It lets an Android app launch a web page full screen, but you've got to have kind of an association with the app. This is good. It like kind of lets people essentially wrap websites and then publish them and distribute them like a normal Android app. So here, for example, we've got the OYO TWA, and once it loops around, you'll be able to see basically that it's just got an icon, click it, full screen. The user may not even know that it's a web app. So one of the features this has is permission delegation, or specifically notification delegation. This is when you get a push notification through Chrome, normally Chrome would show it. Whereas in this case, you get a push notification from Chrome. Chrome talks to the client app, like kind of this wrapper, and then tells the client app to display the notification instead. This kind of has a few advantages, one of which being the client app can kind of modify things if they want. But more importantly, the notification shows that it's kind of coming from the client app, not from Chrome. So here on the left, you've got it shown through Chrome. At the top, you can see it's from Clankium, the local dev name for Chrome. And then on the right, it kind of comes from Trusted Peter's activity, which is my little app. It's also good because if the app is spamming a bunch of notifications, the user will long press on this, disable notifications, and then notifications for the client app will be disabled, not for like kind of Chrome or anything more in general. So auto-enrollment is the next step along this. With a native app, when you install a native app on Android, you automatically get the notification permission, but you don't if you're installing TWA, like kind of because the notifications come through Chrome. Chrome didn't automatically grant that website the notification permission. So with auto-enrollment, basically what we're saying is if you install TWA, Chrome takes that as kind of intent that you trust that as well as you would a native app, so you should be given like kind of the notification permission. And we also reflect back the state of the native app back through Chrome. So if the user then goes and disables the TWA's notification permission, Chrome disables the associated website's notification permission as well. Oh yeah, and they're reverted on uninstall, which is good. That's my backup video, but for now, how do I make the Wolf Vision go? Cool. So we have Chrome and we have my nice little TWA. So we'll go to Chrome first and my nice little test website. You can see the notification permission for this. The notification permission for this is default. We'll then go and launch our TWA for the first time. The notification has been changed to granted. This is kind of shared across Chrome. So if we go back to Chrome, it is changed to granted. We can go into our app settings and disable notifications. We can see the notification permissions denied. Again, the same with Chrome. And finally, we can go and we can, uninstall the app. and the notification permissions reverted back to default. So I think this is generally quite interesting because I've heard a wider discussion with desktop PWAs with like kind of should installing a desktop PWA count as kind of granting permissions. Yeah, and so we currently do that on Android with trusted web activities. Cool, that went a bit quicker than expected. Any questions?
Is it typical that notification permission is granted on Android app installation?
Yes, on Android, an app automatically gets the notification permission. Cool. Well. Woo.
So I think is native file systems, right? You guys see that? Just present, right?
Go present.
Just do go present.
No.
FDX.
Fugu.
No, FDX dash XFX.
I think the bottom link redirects to that.
All right, so we're going to be demoing a use case, well, a couple use cases of the native file system API. The first one we're going to do is open a directory somewhere. And we get a permission prompt asking if we want to open the files, which we do. And here are some files. We can edit a file. So we have some file metadata, like the size and the MIME type. We can edit the file, type some stuff, and save. Oh, that's a demo of the permission system, which it is set to block. So we have a permission prompt. Now we can try again.
I guess I have to reload, yes.
Oh, reload. So yeah, the permission prompt works.
Yes.
It was part of demo, but only later.
So there was an extra. There was so after you went to the chooser, there was a prompt. Like click through really fast. What's that about?
He explained it the first time.
Yeah, so it was asking permission to read the files. So you need permissions.
If you open a directory with the existing input type equals file, we already have a prompt after you select a directory to make sure that you really wanted to select a directory.
I've never seen that. Okay.
Because it's too powerful. Too much power.
One problem with the existing prompt is that it enumerates all the files recursively in a directory. So if it's a big directory, it takes forever.
Just to be clear, if you had just one file, you wouldn't see any permission prompts?
Yeah, no.
Yep. We can demo it too if you want.
First
So
save.
first save, then we can close the editor. And then you see the number of bytes has been updated.
You can also.
Did you increase the font size?
Oh yeah.
Yes. I mean, system UI will still be small, but permission
When
dialog.
permission prompt pops up, if you could get release.
Okay,
That's what it says.
sure.
Can you decrease the screen resolution so that all the native UIs?
Hey, this is Linux.
And then if you want to show the PC on both sides, we can just resume presenting on the go/present. If you want to see the PC on both sides,
Oh,
if we go to the go/present, resume presenting, and that we can pin for showing up.
oh, it's because we restarted.
Yeah, as soon as something else becomes the presentation, the previous one just becomes a regular participant.
Gotcha. So there was a permission prompt for the directory. If we open a file, the picker is enough kind of intent, right? So we also have another flow in which you can write to disk. You can create a new file. This one is just a buffer in memory that we're going to have. and then we use the save as functionality. And that use case would be, you know, you have Photoshop or something like that. You edit the file, and at some point you want to save it.
Okay.
It's saved in an outside of the folder location.
That would have been a better demo, yes.
Yes, correct.
Let's do that.
There we go.
And now you can see that we have write access to.
So it shows the origin can edit the following files and folders, and it enumerates. And you can remove access. That's it. Any questions? Thank
I have
you.
a question
Oh,
about
yeah.
metadata. So this actually pulls some metadata like file size and things like that. I was curious about what are the scope of metadata actually we can access to, like creation date, time, also yeah.
I mean, yeah, currently it's very minimal and it's just last modified date and size, which is what existing file API also has.
Yep. Although I hear we have some potential customers that may have some very interesting requests.
I'll talk about this.
Cool. Looking
good.
forward to it. Thanks.
Next will be Joe.
Give me a little.
You have to present.
Yeah. Did I get it up here? Okay, so my name is Joe. I work for Google, and my one of my jobs is to document new APIs, platform APIs on MDN. The problem that I have had all along is that Chromium tends to add APIs faster to the platform faster than I can get them on MDN, and so. What was decided very recently was that at least for now, I would just focus on the Fugu APIs. So what I'm going to give you is actually less of a demo and more of a public service announcement on exactly how we can start to do this. And this is sort of a version 0.1 for ways to front load this process and ways to get implementation engineers and spec writers involved into contributing this content a bit more. And so what I've got is a document which I'll be sharing around, which describes certain blocks of information that are in specs and explainers, and describes how to write those things in such a way that they can be reused in later iterations of the documentation. So, for example, there's a chunk of information which you can see on screen here, which I'm calling an abstract, and it's going to originate as the first line of an or first paragraph of an explainer. And so the example which I pulled from our sensor APIs is the sensor APIs are a set of interfaces built to a common design that exposes device sensors in a consistent way to the web platform. Now, if that chunk of information is written correctly in the explainer, I can literally cut and paste that into the spec. I can cut and paste it into the intent to implement, the intent to ship, whatever. I can cut and paste it into Chrome status, and then at the very end, I can cut and paste it onto MDN. And so this document, whoops, sorry about that. So this document describes the main chunks of information that we're actually interested in before an API actually gets implemented. One of the major milestones along the way to implementation is what happens when we get to an origin trial. Now, at this point, it would be nice to be able to give the engineers something, however basic, that they could use as a reference for this. Specs are not always ideal because they're ordered in such a way as to make the information convenient for somebody who is implementing it. That's not necessarily the same order that you would want it in if you're the guy who's using it. So I'm going to start writing what I call what I'm for right now calling a new API cheat sheet. And so here's one I've started for the content picker API. And this shows, this is mainly made up of the chunks of information that I have already said are reusable. And it has this page can literally almost be cut and paste as is into MDN when this ships in an actual browser. At this stage, I don't generally want to go much beyond what I'm showing you here because of the possible instability of the API. But if there is reason to believe that the API is fairly stable, we could go beyond this at this stage. There any questions about this? Who do I give this to make sure this gets shared? Not this, but who do I give this to make sure it gets shared among the Fugu folks? Okay, we'll do that. All right, thank you.
Mike?
All right, I'm Mike, and I'm picking up the screen enumeration and window placement APIs that Stephanie has initially done some work on. And I'd like to give a quick demo here. It's maybe a little tricky to see, but I apologize because, yeah, again, I'm remoting into my Linux machine. The idea is to allow PWAs to access the full set of display devices, monitors connected to the local device, and to make use of them by placing windows outside of the current monitor, which is a limitation that we have today. So I'm remoting into my Linux box where I'm running. Sure. I think the noise is forgivable. So I'm remoting into my Linux box where I'm building Chrome OS on Linux, and I've run it with a command line that specifies creating 2 virtual displays. So it's as if I have a monitor on the left and an external monitor, 2 monitors hooked up, or something internal and something external. And so what the enumeration API allows is to get that configuration. And you can see that we have a monitor connected that's 1200 by 800. It's the primary. And you can see some other basic information about it. And it's laid out at coordinate 0, 0, which is the origin of the primary display. The secondary display here is offset to the right. So it has an X coordinate of 1200. And it's 1200 by 960. So as of right now, open window is limited to the current display. So we could pop up a little pop-up window here. But our hope is that we could extend the API with with the ability to open windows on the secondary display, which comes in super handy for scenarios like trying to present a slide in perhaps a setting like this. So this API is currently at the explainer stage, and I'm soliciting feedback with regard to the shape of it, particularly around window placement and perhaps with notifications as to changes of the display layout, the screen setup, window movement, things like that. And it seems like there's some interest among folks in financial tech, folks working with presentation applications, And as I said before, advertisement display. That's pretty much it. Any questions? Yeah.
What's the story around fingerprinting and permissions for this?
Right. So this does seem like a fingerprintable surface to expose the display layout. Currently, the web does expose the details of the display that you are currently showing content on. So you can get the width, height, X and Y coordinate in the overall screen space of the single display that your content is being displayed on. And this would increase perhaps the fingerprintable area by exposing additional displays. We think that it's reasonable to explore a permission to put this API behind a permission. Yes.
So I saw that you typed in like the coordinate. Is the goal to have an API where you punch in the coordinates, and if the coordinates happen to be in that window, it would pop up in that window?
Right.
And it would be like choose, open on window 2 would be like a coordinate.
Yeah, so the question is about the use of the X and Y coordinates here and how that correlates to the secondary display. The common pattern in different operating systems is that there is an overall screen space, a large area that's comprised of individual monitors placed to the left or right of one another. And as those have origins and bounds, you can decide where you would like to place your window in the overall screen space, and that dictates what display it appears on. Yes, so this follows that model. It's sort of the idea of providing a low-level API that gives web developers the ability to do what they want, perhaps with a little bit more legwork on their end, as opposed to saying open on a second display. But things are we're definitely soliciting feedback about ways that we could make this more helpful to web developers. So. Yeah. One more question. Yeah.
Do you get any information about the device?
Yeah. So there's a scale factor is one initial. The question is about device pixel. There are a couple different ways of exposing that information, whether you give the native display's resolution, its current resolution, any scaling factor. And we think that a scale factor is a reasonable way to translate device pixels to CSS pixels if your operating system is showing the UI at, say, 150 or 200%. Cool. All right. I think that's it. Thank you.
Hey, Ramies.
Hello.
Ouch. Tell us how you really feel.
Oh, what happened?
I think you just dropped off.
Oh, okay.
Welcome.
Hi.
So Remus, you're gonna learn a little more about how we do Fugu Dash. So if you want to
Cool.
stick, cool.
Yeah, I'll stick around for a little bit.
All right, sounds good. So hi, I'm Daniel. As you can see, we have the API tracker, and I want to show you how we actually created this one. So everything we do it in monorail, or as you know it, CR bug. So let's say we will pick one, say, context picker, right? So what happens is in CR bug, there are a list of labels, and this is a huge one. So yeah, sure. I thought it did.
I think then go back to presenting.
Yeah, go back to your go/present screen.
Yeah, I did. Am I not presenting?
You're not presenting.
Not over the other one, right? I don't know how I can get that.
So you go on your laptop, go to the screen where you went to go/present.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever window that was.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yes. Good. me switch accounts. Back to scrolling again. Yeah, so there are a few things that we want. So there is a field here called labels. So all the bugs that we want to track off, we added the label proj-fugu to indicate that this is an API that we want to track, right? So then we basically have a collection of all the bugs that we want, right? And the ones that we really care more about is one is the different OSs, and what this will do is it will generate the whether it's mobile only, desktop only, or mobile desktop, right? So if you have OS like Chrome, Linux, Mac, Windows selected, will generate the desktop, and if we have Android and iOS selected, will generate mobile, right? And then we have 3 labels that we care about. 2 of them are shown here. One is the target label. The target label is when we estimate that we will do origin trial, right? So if you have an API, you're going to try to do origin trial in 77, you add target-77. And m- label, we use it to track when we're actually going to be estimated to ship the particular API, right? And then there we have a final, we call a dev trial label. So what this one does is, let's say if we know that we're going to be ready for developer to experiment behind a flag, right? We can add a dev trial label. So what this will do then is it will create, like it will, after you save, right, this will be updated for this bug, right? And then what we can do is we can query a set of bugs for Fugu, right? And then, so these are everything that we have for all the APIs that we're interested in. And then in the very bottom, there is a export to CSV file. Once that's there, when we import it to this dash, and when we click generate, right? I think, okay, not sure what happened. But anyways, if we click on the generate button, right, it will basically generate this dashboard. And then here we indicate the dev trials using flags, basically indication that this API is ready for developer to track. And the green bars shows when we're in origin trials. And the Fugu fish indicates when we're actually going to ship. As these APIs, since we're constantly making changes to API, it's possible that these things get shifted until the very end when we actually ship the API. This is also documented here on, so we have a Chromium website that documents the different processes. And the one that you want to pay attention for this dashboard is the bug tracking process, and lists all the different labels and so forth here. I'm sorry?
How do we find the Chromium page?
Well, the Chromium page, you can search for it. It's Fugu under Chromium. I think Thomas and I were trying to clean up a bunch of docs and make it public.
To make the guidelines doc copy it over.
Right.
Keep reading.
Cool.
The meetings, do we plan to be
I'm sorry. Can you say it a bit louder, please?
when you said about migrating, does that mean you might migrate this to the markdown file and the Git repository?
So I think what happening is we have a bunch of docs internally, but there's some information that we don't want to make it publicly yet. We might want to convert it to a markdown file, MD file, but right now it's just a doc.
So something that like you jump on and update regularly, or we should update whenever we like decide we go into dev trial here, let's update this doc.
So my advice is keep the bugs as accurate as possible. This is just a visualization of what the bugs is.
Yeah.
And I'll try to update the API. Josh and I, we try to update the dashboard pretty frequently. Like I think we try to do it before right at the branch cut. because at that time, usually your API is pretty well defined there. Cool. Thank you so much. Did we want to take a quick break, or did we want to just plow through the remaining demos? Okay, let's take a break. And we'll be back in about 15 minutes.
3:45.
3:45.
CSV file, but forget to include the extra columns.
No, but I did. But the thing is, it's usually if I hit generate, I'm hit this. It's generate will pop up the dialog. Right. Yeah, but I don't know why. Did you make some changes?
Oh,
let me see. I should be able to fix this. It's not a. Yeah.
I have some slides, so directly here.
Oh, can you send it to me and I can add it to?
I have added it.
Oh, have you added here? Yeah. So when it's here, it's fine, right?
It might take a long time.
Oh, can you give me access?
Yeah, just put this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have asked about it still works.
So you got the
This one, right?
yeah, works. It will take a long time.
Okay, just go there first, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm very confident whether I can present perfectly with the live demo here.
Yeah, yeah.
With some problems.
Yeah, thank you.